Okay, frame 7. Here it is.
Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary. Be edgy.
That's it right there.
Ordinary. Be extraordinary.
This might seem simple. It's needlessly complicated right here, and I just want to walk you through how that works.
Settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary. Be edgy.
It's a really useful trick, though, to know. So let's jump right in. Frame 7. So this background is obviously not going to be what we use. But the extraordinary part, we're going to reorder. We're going to redo anyway. So as you can see from the spot, we'll start with ordinary and this line. But before that, let's find some clips to put in. So we go back to stock video. I think there was some nice ones. Yeah, this one right here. This is nice. Maybe like right there. Okay, so that part's set up. Okay, the cool thing about, again, this integration between Illustrator and After Effects is this line, I created this line as a stroke line, not a rectangle in Illustrator. And when I go to convert this to a shape layer by using right-click, create, and then create shapes, it actually knows that it was a stroke and not a rectangle. So it comes in as a stroke, and we have the path, and it just basically, adapted the stroke width to whatever it was in an Illustrator. So now we have a stroke, a line for this. And it makes it super easy to just do a really quick trim paths animation of this line being drawn on. Now, trim paths is a really important thing to know about shape layers in After Effects. So the way to do that on a shape layer is add trim paths right here. Now when I expand that, there's a start, an end, and an offset. Now the end is basically the length of that path line, the stroke line. So all we're going to be animating is just the end going from 0 to 100% and crossing out. Trim paths is a really important thing to know about shape layers. So we have that one as the end, and drag that down the timeline, make this 0. Here's our animation. And we go to the graph editor and just do the second keyframe like that. That's too long because it's going to be don't settle for
ordinary.
So right as ordinary happens,
Don't settle for ordinary.
yeah.
Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary. Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary.
Yeah, trim paths. Really, really important to know. And I think I'm just going to have this ordinary. I want it to, pop on about right here. Just a really subtle scale animation. Like that. Something like that. Just to give it something to do.
Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary. Settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary. Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary.
There we go. So,
don't settle for ordinary.
Right as it says B, we're going to cut away. Actually, we're going to cut away at extraordinary. So B
Be extraordinary.
Yeah, cutaway right here. So I'm going to just shift select these 3 layers, even though line is hidden, and just do alt right bracket and cut them right there. And then actually the video too.
Extraordinary. Don't settle for ordinary. Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary.
Now this one's different. Obviously we're going to recreate this. We could do it with the text tool, but I'm actually just going to duplicate this and mask it and then use this vector layer, but just kind of move it around a little bit to reflect what the spot looks like. So I'm going to select this layer, and I'm going to use the pen tool right here and just draw a box right here like that, because I want to be able to get that angle of the A without cutting the O out. So like something like that. Great. And then I'm just going to duplicate this layer, just rename it extra. And then this one, rename it, and then move the mask. Okay, cool. So now that I have these two separated out, I can just kind of right click, go to transform, center anchor point in layer content. And because it understands that it's been masked, it looks for the middle point of the masked layer, which is nice. Same thing with here, anchor points out here, like this. Great. You can see there's a sliver of the A right here. Let me just make sure. If I change the resolution to full, yeah, I can see how it looks. Okay. Just bring that in a little bit. There we go. You can see that. That's okay though. Okay, great. We have extra and ordinary. We have them centered with the anchor points. So now we can scale them, and since they're vector layers, they will always be sharp. But you can see there's a button that has to be pushed first. So if I scale these up, you can see there's still kind of, it's a bitmappy looking jagged edges stuff, which is not cool. If you toggle the switches and modes and go to this side, there's a button right here that has to be clicked for it to stay sharp. It's this button right here. It's this little sun icon. Now if you look at the explanation, it says for a vector layer, it continuously rasterizes. So it basically will be sharp no matter how big or small it gets. And as long as I just click that on the layer, look what happens. Boom. It stays sharp no matter how big it gets. It's another really great feature of the vector layer integration with Illustrator and After Effects. Okay, great. So I'll make sure that I just want to place these first so they're as big as they can be on the screen. About like that. And as you can see in the spot, I want to have them come out from the middle.
Don't settle for ordinary. Be extraordinary.
And we're going to match these up to
Extraordinary.
another quick cut between the ordinary of the first part and the ordinary of the extraordinary.
Be extraordinary. Be ordinary. Be extraordinary. Be ordinary. Be extraordinary.
Yeah, have that move down as the extra comes up, and we cut to this now cut out text mat version of extraordinary with some gradients.
Be extraordinary. Be edgy.
So now what we're going to do is match up the ordinary from here with the ordinary from here. I'm going to hide this extra. Now I can see that it's actually bigger. So I'm going to scale up the first ordinary. I'm actually going to drag this keyframe to be right here, because I know that's going to be the value that we want once I figure it out, which is about right here, like that. Okay, great. Now obviously the line isn't big enough. That's easy. We can just scale that up too. Move it over. Awesome. And now just do a position animation for this first ordinary to move down. And then in the middle of that move, we'll cut to this last part of the card. So go to the position, have that accelerate. And just for fun, just to keep it organized, I'm actually going to parent the line, the red line, to this ordinary. So it's going to move with it too. And then as this moves down, the extra is going to show up from behind. And I'm actually going to do another position animation for the second one too. There we go. Just matching those movements. It's not exact, but because they're moving and we're going to cut, it's going to be fine. Yeah. Great. Okay, so now we want to have this extra move out from behind ordinary. This is another approach that is going to help you as you start to layer on things that are complicated in shots. I'm actually going to pre-compose these two layers, the extra and the ordinary, and then make them their own composition. It's going to make sense in a second why, but I want to do the animation of this extra moving up from behind the ordinary in its own composition. So what I'm going to do is shift select those two layers, and the shortcut is Shift Command C, but the command right here is inside the layer dropdown. It's called Precompose, which really means is to make a composition based on the selected layers that you have. So if I click that, Precompose, Precomp 1 is what it's going to be called. And there's no difference between a pre-comp and a composition. They're the same things. They're just, you've made the composition from scratch inside of another composition. That's kind of why it's called that. I'm just going to call this Extraordinary. And this is important to know, to move all attributes into the new composition and then adjust the composition duration to the time span of the selected layers. So that's great. So it's going to make a composition with those two layers at the exact same duration as they are right now. Hit OK. So now you can see how it's been compressed into a composition, and you can see the icon is now different too. It's a composition. It's a nested composition inside this one. So I double click on that. Now it's just those two layers, and I've still got the same animation from Ordinary too. And they just exist inside their own composition. So it allows for more control over what's happening to these two layers without really affecting what's happening inside this whole composition. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have Extra move out from behind Ordinary. And the way to do that is to create a mat for the Extra to show up within. And that's going to be kind of based on the animation of this Ordinary word. So first of all, what we're going to do is create a mat, create a solid layer that the Extra text that we can use to reveal. So I'm just going to go up here to Layer, New Solid. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to put this in between the two words. Actually, below Ordinary. Because what I want, as you can see in the spot,
be extraordinary.
There's a space right here that the word that Extra shows up within. This space right here. We want to have that be part of the mat too. The space between Ordinary and Extra. So I want to put this solid like that. If we go back to toggle switches and modes, and we make this a track mat for Extra by just doing this, and you can see that solid disappears. So now if I go to Extra and position downward, it disappears. That's great. Now if I'm going to hide this right now, even if it comes up, it's still going to be conflicting with the Ordinary, but we'll fix that in a second. So just to get this placement right, like that. Okay, good. So that's how it's going to end. I'm just going to bring this down like this. And like that. And just for some cleanup, what I want to do is just make sure that there's still a gap between Extra and Ordinary as it moves down like this. We could keep here in the solid to move with the Ordinary, or we could just parent the solid to the Ordinary layer, and then it'll move with the animation of Ordinary. And that seems to be a lot easier, and will also be cleaner too. So select this solid layer, parent it to the Ordinary text, and now as it moves, that gap will stay the same, like that. We hide this solid layer again. There we go. I kind of want this Extra to like just trail a little bit to move up, to give it some more personality. Awesome. So now if we go back to frame 7 by hitting tab, That's great. And now we can use this layer as a track mat for a gradient background. But before that, I want to get a clip in, put a clip behind that of something really extraordinary, like that's cool, but it's going to get covered up. Something like this is just like really action-packed. That seems cool. Something like that. So I'm just going to take that clip. Something like that. Add it in. Left bracket to send it to the playhead. Cool. Yeah, and then just just find a gradient background for this, and we're done. So we go back to the gradient background folder, find something cool. This is nice. Yeah, gradient background 19. Drag that in here. Make sure to scale it down because it's beyond 1080. That's great. And then go back to this. The track mat needs to be, this needs to be cut out by the text. There we go. There we go. Frame 7 is done.